Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another week of Growing with My Fellow Growers. I'm your host, joined as always by an amazing panel. Uh, I'm your host, Jack Greenstock, joined as always by an amazing panel. I had somebody jump in right as I was introducing myself, but I'll pass it over first to Noah the Grower.
How's it going, everybody? Went to the beach last weekend. Happy to be back. Happy to get into it.
Happy to have you back. I've been enjoying the beach a lot here lately as well, myself. In North County, San Diego, I've been fortunate to have some pretty good weather today and recently. Been getting to the beach literally every single day for the past 80 something days in a row. Been waking up and going for a walk about a mile and a half, 2 miles every morning just to start the day on top of all the other stuff that I've been doing. But it's a great way to start the day. I'm feeling very grateful. I know it's something we always talk about during Thanksgiving and that time of year, but it's something to reflect on. I'm grateful for this audience and the panel of people that we have with us, including our very own, the American one. Cheers.
Hello, Jack, Noah, everyone in chat. I'm the American one. It's always good to be here. I'm glad I made it this week. And yeah, I'm the American one underscore with underscore Akeens on the IG. And yeah, I'm glad I made it. And I'll be in chat in a couple minutes.
Good stuff. Well, speaking of chat, we are going to be taking some questions tonight. We did get a little bit of a scientific article, but I don't think that we have enough of the panel, and I don't know if enough of us have gone over it. And I actually don't even know what the topic is. I didn't even get to it at all. So we won't be getting to that this evening, but maybe next week. But as a reminder, go ahead and start tagging at Cheap Home Grow or Noah the Grower or the American one or whoever you want to, like We Nerd DWC just said at Cheap Home Grow. And they're saying cheers to Noah and Tao. And it looks like we have Spartan Grown joining us as well here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I admit him into the room. I'm going to adjust my Zoom call size a little bit so I can see more of the live chat, which a reminder, if you're not already on the live chat on YouTube, they will censor a lot of the comments and block out comments if you're on top chat. It could be view all chat versus whatever. Um, top chat versus all chat or live chat. But make sure you click on over that live chat so you can get in there and start dropping these questions, and we'll start dropping some answers with all of the panelists, including our very own Spartan Grown. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jack. Sorry, I was a little bit late there, but I'm Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram at Spartan Grown, all one word, no spaces. Otherwise, you can shoot me an email at spartangrown@gmail.com or russ@gmlarmy for all your growing and lighting questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you do have lighting questions or growing questions, feel free to drop them. We'll try and go lightning round tonight. If I see any, we'll get them copied over. There's enough of us now. One of us will see it and get it copied over into our Zoom chat. If we don't answer it right away, hang around for a few minutes. There's a good chance we will answer it live right here tonight if you do ask a grow related question or even grow industry slash, I don't know, related topics. We'll get into whatever people are interested in asking.
I'm just now getting into the chat. I'm all behind on everything.
It's all good. Loading it all up. It can be a little difficult. I got here and set up just a few minutes before the show, and just happy that we are all here again. I was saying at the beginning, I am very grateful for the audience and the panel, regardless how many can make it live with us each week. I'm always thankful. It was just me and Noah for a second there, and I was like, well, hey, we can take some questions and hang out with the chat, and maybe we'll open up the panel. And I'm probably still thinking hour two, we'll open up the panel, and Noah said he's gonna show off his garden and go into his room, which I'm always a fan of. He's growing some dank over there, and it's looking very, very good. The Oreos especially, and many other things over there. But Noah's killing it as always, and definitely a teaser to make you want to hang around and check out at the second hour of the show. Noah's garden is always killer, and doing the live walkthrough is a lot of fun. I think growing with my fellow growers is in part because we are actually growers, and Noah and many others will come on and show their garden to prove just that. And it's nice when people can talk the talk and also walk the walk, so to speak. And Noah is one of the many, I think, that have been able to come on this panel and show that they not only know what they're talking about, but can put it to work and grow some dank. So cheers to Noah and all the other growers out there growing some dank. I know I'm getting back on that track here soon, restocking on some soil supplies and getting my space cleaned up and ready for some Vortex F2s, aka Project V, courtesy of my buddy Spartan Grown over there, which I'm very excited to get growing.
I'm excited to see those. I've seen a lot of people in the community grow them, and it's always exciting. But there's actually a couple of people breeding with them too, which is awesome. Really cool to see. I love that. I love that growing. And speaking of genetics out there, shout out to, well, hell, a couple of you guys right on the panel too were part of this. But yesterday was for the on the Let's Be Budge channel that I'm a part of. There was a fundraiser, and we gave away 60 packs of seeds in 60 minutes. And it was 60 packs of seeds, 60 different breeders to 60 different winners, no double winners. And it was super cool. And some of those people that breeders that donated seeds sitting right in this panel, Jack and Tao. Appreciate you guys.
Happy to be a help. I just need to be reminded where I need to send it and when I need to send it. So
Yeah, once we get those guys to contact us with address, we'll let you know. But we ended up raising like $3,000, maybe a little bit more in money for the Last Prisoner project, and Dutchies will double that, so that'll be $6,000. That's sweet.
so awesome, man.
Super excited to see that.
That's our own little lobby. I mean, we're trying our best to, they literally do that. They spend some of the funds that they get every year on lobbying efforts, going to DC and all the other states that are not currently legal and trying to advocate on behalf of the people that are in prison for cannabis and getting them out. I mean, we've got cases of people that have already been released because of the Last Prisoner Project, and they're helping people that are in there by getting them letters or maybe filling up their commissary and things like that. So they're doing a lot of really great work, and I just can't speak highly enough of them. And I'm always happy when I see brands working with them, whether it's you and the guys over at Let's Be Buds, or there's a brand out here called Farmer and the Felon, and there's a few other brands that every single time they make a sale, a percentage goes directly to Last Prisoner Project, which I think is
Awesome.
a really great cause.
I couldn't agree more, man. I see all the work that they do to help the people that are in there or just getting out. The advocacy work they do politically. That's just everything that they're a part of. I'm all for. It seems like there's not anything they're really into that I'm like, no, let's not do that. So yeah, that's a group that I am totally throw my full support behind.
It's tough because a lot of like the quote unquote groups that do work around like charities or good causes, so many of them are really ultimately a fundraising scam for the CEOs or whatever. They're driving Bugattis and whatever. And meanwhile, like 1% goes to the bottom line, or like less than 10% goes to the bottom line at almost every big major charity. Like when you look into it, it's actually really disheartening. So when you see
Yeah.
one that's actually putting that money to good work, it feels a lot better.
That's what I wrote in the chat. I'm like, I generally don't trust charities at all. But even if this one only gets 10% to someone that's in jail, dude, that they deserve it. And yeah, I could not I not going to think I was up either. I never spent more than one night in jail. And yeah, I don't think I could hack it, man. I mean, I smoke cigarettes, or I have basically, and coffee. If I don't have coffee, I'm just a zombie, dude. I can't even think. And I know certain jails, they don't allow the coffee. But yeah, now I'm getting off track. But while I'm babbling, I have a few plants that I took some footage of for on the Smart Focus show that I could show you guys.
Love to
Yeah,
see it.
let's see those for sure.
Yeah, because yeah, I've been out of the loop a little bit with everything. So
Let me make sure I can have multiple participants share at once. Boom. All right, you
I
now
think
have
I'm sharing, right?
maybe not yet because I didn't enable it.
Oh.
I just clicked over, so it says multiple participants can share simultaneously. So you might have to end the
All
share
right,
and
let
then
me try it
reshare.
again.
That was the one, the donation by Dutchies, their matching stuff makes it so easy for me to, when people say or have reservations about how much of this is really going to go to the charity or whatever. It's like, well,
That time of year,
the double in it,
it's something
man.
to reflect on. I'm grateful for this audience and the panel of people that we have with us, including
All right, can
our
you
very
guys see
own,
this
the
now?
American one. I'm
Cheers.
getting feedback from, I don't know if
Oh,
your
all
audio
right,
is.
hold on a sec. Everyone in chat. Let me stop a second, then. And yeah, I got the YouTube going still.
If you just mute the YouTube, I think it will be good to go when you share the audio.
I stopped
share that.
sharing for a second.
Yeah, there's no share right now.
Okay. All right, let's try it again. Let me cue it up again. Wait.
Tao for president says Jaceline 512.
There you go. Now we're talking. I
Something we
think
can
I'd
get
be
behind.
better as I want to be Department of Transportation, because I don't know if you guys heard this, but the stop all way signs, I totally believe, are a ploy from Soviet Union to get us to slow down progress. If you follow my logic, what are we all stopping at a stop sign for? just a waste of valuable time for two sides of that equation right there.
It's to flex our freedom on them. We have so much extra time that we can fucking stop and wait and look around.
All right, here we go. Okay. All right, here it is. I tried going sideways, but that didn't work.
It didn't snap,
But
yeah.
yeah, basically, these are like 10 inches to a foot high when I stuck them in this spot, and I really haven't done anything. I just let God take care of them after I did that because I don't want people noticing me visiting them and stuff like that because I'm like right in the backyard. But they blew up all on their own.
That's nature, man. If you're in the
Yeah.
right area with good soil, they'll fucking grow like weeds, so to speak.
Pennsylvania, apparently, I was amazed because when I went driving around here, there's cornfields everywhere, and there's no irrigation systems at all. Not
Bro,
on
yeah,
one,
it's
not on one farm.
the Corn Belt, like Pennsylvania, Ohio. I think
It's
even like
unbelievable.
a lot southern Michigan, I think has corn. There's a lot in
Right? I'm
Idaho
showing
and
how green, but yeah, these are like just starting right now. Throw up pistils. I don't think you want to get a mature plant out of the lot unless I do something about it.
it was interesting.
But
Somebody commented on Brandon's a few weeks ago. He had been showing off. He was saying, I think it was estimating like 40 pounds or something. And a lot of people are like, I wonder if that's even gonna finish. And then like a few weeks later, I saw an update at Brandon's farm and like some of his plants got damaged by a storm. So I'm curious. We'll have to have him on for an update to
yeah,
see what he
there was
thinks.
a view of like when I turn around, you can see like there's windows. Oh, now I went back too far. But yeah, that's I couldn't live without having a live plant to look at every day. I don't think, man.
It really
But
makes
yeah,
life a whole lot better. I hate taking a break like I'm currently on right now. It's eating me up a little bit inside, but I've had a lot of other stuff that I've been putting off and needing to do work wise and wanting to finish up 50 Strains of Purple and put more time into that. And not to say that I can't garden as well. I definitely can. So I've made a lot of excuses for myself, but I've also been extremely busy in my regular business and things like that. So got to make sure everything in life is taken care of. But having a garden is certainly one of the greatest parts, I think, and we can all appreciate that, the joy that we get from being in the garden. We did go at a question at the top earlier from Kade Armstrong. It says, I moved uh, to a house with crab apples or crabapple tree that has produced a lot of apples. Is there anything to do with these in the garden? They're just sitting on the ground right now. Genetic Memory Farm says Kate Armstrong, jelly, syrup, booze, crumble, or crisp fillings, all good options. I think that Cade maybe was looking more for like, can you turn this into like nutrients or something? Maybe I could be wrong though. I'd have to follow up with Cade. I'm curious if you all have some general thoughts on that initial question from Cade.
I'd have to do some research on it, but you can make apple cider vinegar. You could just ferment it. You could throw it into a compost pile to mix it with a lot of browns. You could fucking just stack them all up in a big stack and add some worms to it, and hopefully the birds won't kill all the worms. Maybe put like some sort of a structure over to protect it, even if it's just cardboard over the top. Um, what else? I'm trying to brainstorm here. You just dig a pit and throw them in the pit and cover it up. Make
You
like
could,
a what do you call that? Raised bed a little bit.
I was gonna say you could throw them at the rapscallions and rowdy neighborhood children walking by. Get
I
off
used to
my
do that as
lawn.
kids. We used to have wars across the fence with the apples, rotten apples.
The only reason I brought it up is because when I was a kid, we had crab apple trees in Ohio and we would throw them at each other all the time. And when they hit, they blow up for the most part once they're a little bit rotted. They're not
You got to
as
get them
hard.
soft, yeah, so they explode. Otherwise, they're just hard and they're rocks.
Yeah, because otherwise, yeah, you can definitely hurt people with a crab apple, especially thrown hard. I mean, yeah, I saw a few injuries take place in these circumstances, but we all made it out alive.
what's
I
that?
did-
FPJ, fermented
Yeah,
plant juice. There you go. I don't know exactly,
Yeah,
but if you Google that, you can figure out how to do that one.
no, I think that's a good option to try and extract and make useful nutrients from any sort of plant that you have widely available and not going to great use. Compost, I think, though, grading with Spartan is a great option there as well. Lone Star Larf says, could ferment the apples in a bucket, chop them up, but some kefir or labs or something in cheesecloth with the apples, boom, you have a fermented plant extract in a week or two. So there's a little bit more to the process. Interesting thoughts. I mean, I eat a lot of apples,
All of
not
these
crab apples.
suggestions really are different paths to the same end, though, right? We're just trying to extract the nutrients out of it. So you can look down those lines. Like you could use like that's on like bokashi fermenting or bokashi composting. I mean, and honestly, that's probably a strong one to have just to keep smells down, and that will in turn keep bugs down and flies and all kinds of other good stuff. I like that idea. Just get some bokashi brand, just throw it in a pile, put some bokashi brand on there, and call it a day.
A lot of people have a lot of success with that. Shout out to Brandon Rust, Bokashi Earthworks. He's got good Bokashi available. I've used it in my soil for many years, just a tiny amount. Goes a long way and creates some good mycelium pretty quickly after. Coupled with the decent worm casting, I think can't really go wrong there. And I don't know if it would Spartan saying it, you might be able to get it going in the worm bin if the right considerations are taken. I think breaking it up a little bit, mashing it as much as you can before you put it into like a worm bin, if you're going to do something like that.
Best bet with I think with worm bin is whatever you're using for worm food is to mash it up as most as possible and homogenize it, make it all one thing. And then if you can scoop it up and dump it onto your worm bin and just go by measurements, like I fed them a half an inch today, and you don't feed them again until a half inch is gone. You won't really can't go wrong when you do stuff like that with a worm bin. It just kind of takes care of itself. You won't over or underfeed. You just give them a certain amount of food, give them whatever time they need to get rid of all that food, then feed them again. Kind of like how I feed my plants. You know what I mean? I look down there if they have
Yeah,
water,
don't
they
just
get nothing. I don't add to it
exactly.
unless it's gone.
Good advice. I think a lot of people run worm bins too wet because they want to keep on adding wet material, wet material, wet material, just because, oh, I have some scrap from this meal or I have some fresh scraps right now, so I'm gonna add it on. But
A good
it's a
Yeah,
tip that I
convenience.
got, if I'm stealing from my girl, anything grows. She would keep all of her like food scraps. She would just put them in a little container in her freezer. And what was cool about that for that you'd give to the worms or whatever compost is that when you take it out of the freezer, that freezing process helps break that shit down too. And that shit
mhm.
comes out there way mushy. So it makes it easy to do stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely does
Yeah.
something to the structure of the whatever it is, like orange peel or
Cell
anything.
walls must break it. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
cell walls. That's
it keeps the smell down, keeps it from all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, I would have I at one point had like a mini small pre-composting bin so that I would put stuff in there and let it rot a little bit on its own before I gave it to the worms. So it had a head start, you know. Especially when you
smart.
have like a
That's
lot of
huge.
extra. Yeah.
That's huge
And
for a lot, getting a lot of the moisture out of it too, which is
yeah,
nice.
I was gonna say you regulate the moisture that way too. Mhm.
Yeah, and then in Spartan's case where like you add a half an inch or an inch, however long it takes them to replace it, then you've always got that backup thing that's kind of cooking like a pre-compost. And it's all about having a system. My dad always said that a system is is the solution. And so if you set something up, it'll tend to operate and work well for you as long as you set it up properly. So
You know what those give for me? Like on my bins, I usually put when I give them stuff to eat, I put it on half, like one side only, so that even if it's maybe too hot or if it's something funky, they have a safe area to go that was already there. That it was good, you know.
It's another great way to do it is like combine the two things that we were just talking about. Whatever food you're given, say it's a half inch, do a half inch only on one side. And then you can, they'll migrate over to it once, like you said, if it's as long as it's not composting, if it's composting, they have a safe spot to chill until it's done. Then they can go over there and chow down and they'll all pretty much migrate to that side. You can harvest the other side for the worm castings and then fucking fill it back up with new bedding and then new food. And bam, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's a pretty sweet way to do it too.
it's like reminding me a little bit of the avocado tech, which granted is in living soil beds, but they would put the blended homogenized amendments into an avocado hull, like the skin of an avocado that's been all peeled out, and then they'd blend up whatever it was that they wanted to put into the soil, basically. And then you'd see the worms would literally migrate into the thing so much so it would be like writhing, and you could lift up the peel of the avocado. the skin, and you just see a ball of worms, literally like just completely engulfing the entire innards of what used to be the whatever they fed to the avocado. And I imagine, just like Spartan and Tower referring to here, by having a targeted area where they can go and feed, but also having an area where maybe they're not hungry right now. Maybe they just ate. Maybe they were the ones that just did some of that work. They're gonna chill over there. But the ones that haven't for a little while are gonna go migrate over and then take care of business. And some of them are, reproducing. I think they make so many extra little pods or whatever it's called that create more worms. So they're busy, reproducing and doing all other types of things
Yeah,
in
the
there as well.
cocoons, usually there's 3 worms in a cocoon too. So
They can definitely get good populations pretty fast. It's like bunnies, but underground.
yeah. They have a awesome way of self regulating their own numbers. And those cocoons can stay dormant kind of if there's not right conditions. That's why if you take worm castings sometimes, if they don't filter them real fine and don't filter out the worm castings, you might get worms in your soil just from a casting that might have just chilled out for a long time and decided it was going to go ahead and pop.
It's funny. It's almost like a seed in that way. Like
Yeah,
I know
yeah, exactly.
you had the build a soil mix that for a while hadn't like ground it enough of the hemp seed, so people were getting little volunteer hemp sprouts out of the one. But yeah, it's the whole screening process. It really depends on how fine you do it, and a lot of people end up with a worm or two here and there in their soil if they use worm castings for long enough and uh, get it from a source that's not ultra fine screening it, because they're pretty reproductive.
Yeah, I'm fine with seeing
Don't
worms in the
separate them.
soil. I don't add them to my soil though. Like,
Right. I think one or two here and there is fine in your soil, but like when people try to make the conditions in their soil beneficial for the worms, I'm like, then you're worried about the worms and not the plant. Like you need to focus on what you're focusing on, which is growing the plant as well as you can. If it gets a little bit non-ideal for that worm, then maybe you can dive deeper where it's more moist or it can struggle and die or whatever. But I'm not going to
yeah,
worry about the worm that's in
Yeah,
my
that's why
soil
that
versus the one that's in a worm bin.
avocado tech is interesting. You have that one spot where you can put the worm food and then they can get at it if they want it. It's
I
not
think
like the
that
whole
I
pot.
think worms and organics, this is kind of the same. Is like the bigger the pot, the bigger the media you're in, the more shit you can get away with, like throwing worms in there. And because now you can have a spot that's not the greatest for plants, but it's really good for worms, because they can sacrifice that little bit of space. And then when those worms venture out of there and fertilize, they're gonna, be beneficial to everything. And I think that's cool because organics, you're trying to replicate nature a lot. And to do that, you want to try to get into a big pot. So not only are your plants in a bigger container and they can spread out their roots, but they can spread out their roots and touch other plant roots. You know what I mean? Like other cannabis plant roots. And then what does that mean? What does that have any effects? Who knows? But I think it's cool. It's shit like that I sit there looking at the plants thinking of in the
I wonder
grow.
about that because as above, so below is a saying, and I think there's wisdom in a lot of these old sayings. But as above, so below, and in the reason I bring that up is when I first started researching terpenes, one of the first things I found was if plants, not just cannabis, but any plant in a field, there's a infestation of bugs over here that start eating plant A. It starts throwing a lot of terpenes to make it less appealing and have more defenses to fight off those bugs. And then the other plants around it think they're not actually smelling it, but they're getting hit by those chemicals essentially. And those chemicals have a reaction. Oh, all of my buddies are being attacked. So I need to put up my defenses a little bit more. So if they're communicating above the soil, I would be shocked to think that there's not communication going on below the soil with the exudates, with the microbial colonies, with, all the things that we don't even know about so far. There's, like we've talked about in the past, like there's certain times where they like go and take DNA from like other plants and things like that, and they absorb it into themselves and like blast the mitochondrial DNA off of it and absorb it into their plant. So there's fascinating things that are going on in the soil that we're just discovering. And compost is like, I think I actually kind of on the cutting edge, like biological technologies and microbial technologies and understandings of microbes and things like that. Somebody said they were using microplast, I think it was Sacred Terra, with great results. And a lot of people I think are having great results now, kind of going back to some of the old ways, some feel, or just the modern science is kind of leading to a resurgence of the organics because we're seeing lots of benefits for one reason or another, whether it's higher nutrient content in a fruit or, higher terpenes or something like that. Not to say that it's always that way. There's some people that grow some really fire stuff and synthetic, and I don't think that that's a route that should be discouraged. But I do think that now that there are more options available, a lot of people are choosing that organic approach and not hating the results and having lots of positive ones as well. So
I
I'm
think they
certainly
both
happy
are
to see that.
just I hate it when a group that I love, will say the cannabis community, right, has to decide to put each other in fucking categories and then put those categories against each other. I like to say, because I fucking live this. This is my life. I grow both organically and synthetically, still to this day. And I think that they're each a tool in your tool belt as a grower. And they both have their strengths in certain situations. And when you find yourself in that situation, you pull that tool out and you use it. And to say one's better than another is to say like four-wheel drive truck is better than a race car. Well, maybe in the right situation it is, and in another situation it's not. So I hate it when I hear it, and I always push against it, man. It's like there's pluses to both, man. There's pluses to both.
It's
I
all a
just
matter of circumstance,
grow.
and I feel like it's more like a Honda Civic versus a Toyota Camry or something. They're both just run of the mill, gonna
Yeah.
get shit done
I was
options. Like
thinking one
both
would do really
options.
well off-road and one would do really good on-road. That's kind of what I was saying, but
I
whatever.
respect that. I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
But
like the humble, whatever car that's just like the working car
the
that just
working
like
man's car,
it gets
yeah.
you A to B. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just
Camry,
does the
man.
job. And I think
Solid
both
Camry.
organics and synthetics can be that way. It's like you can just
Yeah.
grow dank simply. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to pay for the most expensive nutrient line. You could probably go to your local box store and just get some organic soil and make it work, or the whatever.
GH3 part, the
Yeah, the
fucking
GH3 part.
wins cups, man.
Yeah, I think
That
that
and you can win
Doc
cups
still
from
recommends that.
Jacks.
That's Yep, Jack's 321, another a very affordable, cheap home grow option. It's affordable and it works really well. Um, so I mean, there's definitely scales of the prices. Like advanced nutrients is going to be like way more expensive than
Way up there, yeah.
any of these other
Well,
options that we're
even I think
talking about.
advanced nutrients might, if you go with some just like the basic stuff and not all the bullshit. I don't want to say bullshit, I'm sorry. All the additives. Um, it might be somewhat, I haven't looked at it, but it might be somewhat reasonable. I don't buying anything for nutrients makes me grumpy to begin with. What, I have to buy nutrients? I can't fucking make this. But I can see where a starter just wants to do something easy and just throw it, get growing tomorrow. And
Or even in like the trichome forages case, like consistency and
exactly,
more commercial build
consistency.
out, large tanks feeding
Well, what's crazy is
specific
that we're
nutrient
both
loads.
addicted to popping seeds and pheno hunting. So we're going to have variation when it comes to plants all the time. So if we're going to have variation with plants all the time, we can't have variation when it comes to the nutrient regime. We need to have something that we need a constant in there. We can't have
A
variation
baseline.
on everything. Yeah, we need something to try to
Yeah,
knock
because the
out.
soil changes
Yes, it
every
does.
every year.
Absolutely.
It
And
gets richer and
so do
some
inputs change, because usually you try to source stuff that's local to you. You don't want to source stuff from Timbuktu if you can get it from Tim down the road, because Buck 2 might be down in the next country. So yeah, yeah. So your inputs are changing all the time, most likely. So, but they're two different things. And yeah, for sure, yep, you want a consistent nutrient regime, so then we can like eliminate that as a factor, and we can be like, okay, let's make a choice on these phenos. We just did that today. Today we were harvesting the last of the chocolopes, all the green phenos, and then we harvested it's the honey banana crosses from DNA genetics, and that was the kosher kush to honey bananas, and the other one was, oh, I get it wrong all the time. It's OG and a number, like 16 or something. OG 16 times Clementine times, or maybe Clementine times OG 16 times honey bananas. And those ones were like freaking growing spears. These giant. No, I didn't get any video today. What the hell did I do? That was dumb. Anyhow, just spears of bud. It was ridiculous, awesome, huge. just cold as a buds, and smelling a lot on the clementine side. And then the most disappointing was the Kosher Kush, which was because I was the most geeked for it, I think is why I was the most disappointed. But it's old school, like super leafy. Oh my God, leafy. And so ugly of plants. I mean, they were still pretty spear-like in a good sized yield, it looks like, but Baked was not impressed, and he's like, I'm not keeping any of the clones of this. And so he stopped watering them, but they're still in there all shriveled up. And I brushed by one. This was a couple days ago before we harvested, and one of them, I smelled it. I was like, God, did you smell these? What do you mean they're bullshit? And he's like, started going off on me, and I was like, no, this one over here smells like, to me, it smelled really close to sour diesel smell would be the closest cannabis smell that it would smell like. And I was like, and I love the fucking smell of sour diesel. I said, "Do you smell these?" I said, "Smell this. What smells like sour diesel?" And he comes over there and smells it, and he was like, still disgusted by the plant. But he said, I'll try to give it some, I'll try to water it, and we'll see if it comes back to, if it comes back to life, it's meant to be. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So we went back to we went back and he watered it, and I think it was today, 2 days later, it ended up perking up. So we've got a copy of it. Am I the only one here now? I feel like I'm
No,
talking.
it was my bad. I had to step
We're
away from
listening
the.
intently,
Yeah,
Spartan. No
I'm
worries.
here.
Okay, sorry. No, it's so weird. It's just like talking to a screen. No, no. So yeah, so we do have backed up, and we do have a clone of it. So that's cool. So if it is something special, in concentrate, because everything was fresh frozen, harvested today, it'll be preserved. So that's cool. And Tao, thinking about you, I did snag when we harvested the purple phenos, the ones I like the most, the two phenos of the purple chocolate. One was kind of like a berry smelling, and the other one was kind of like a coffee smelling, earthy coffee smelling. Uh, we took put two like side branches, not the cola, not the lower branches, those middle side branches. I took one of each. They're dry right about now, probably, and I'll be trimming them up. We'll see. I heard that supposedly on the chocolate, somebody got in my DMs there and was telling me that to get the chocolate out of the
Yeah,
chocolate,
let it.
get it a
Yeah,
longer
cure.
cure.
Yep, I heard that too. I'm
Okay,
I'm
so
I'm thinking that maybe that coffee one might, turn
that's
towards chocolate. That would
that's
be
what
cool,
that's what I'm
dude.
thinking. I wouldn't think the berry one was going to do it, but I
Right.
mean, I'll throw them both in a jar.
There you
But
go.
I did it specifically because now I want to know, right? And so we'll find out.
You gotta put a date on that jar and then check it like, once a month or something. And then just know like, oh, at 4 months, the chocolate came out.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine maybe it might be one of those late terpenes. Like it's got to flash off some of the other terpenes, and then boom, it's there. I really
That's
think
often the
it's
case.
probably on the coffee side of things. It makes sense, but that's where it was.
I think if people are consuming fresh cannabis like all of us are, it's a relatively newer phenomenon, right? Because they're either growing their own or they're close to a source, or they're buying it from the right group, I guess. Because a lot of places for a long time, you would get stuff that was maybe a year or more older by the time it got to you and traveled in who knows what method. Could have been a gas
That's
tank.
a really good fucking point, man. That's a really good point. You're right. The shit everybody was getting is older than you get the dispensary now, and I bitch about that.
And we would complain like, well, actually in law, it's like it's expired at a year, so it has to be destroyed, which means they like gift it out to all the employees to smoke it for free. But it it's interesting
Big
that
tip guys out there listening, those free pre-rolls. You know those really cheap or free pre-rolls. What do you think that product is? That's what it is.
it's often just shitty ass, like it's not even bud,
Shit.
it's just leaf. It's
It's
leaf
just
that they
shaped in a
grind up.
metal jar.
Delicious.
It's awful. It got to the point I started saying no to those. Like in the 215 days when I used to go to the dispensary pretty regularly, like I'd smoke it so often it would just like ruin my high and give me like a bad high. It'd burn shitty. It would taste terrible. I'm like, I'm paying for like the good shit. I would buy like the top shelf,
Oh
like the
yeah.
best whatever I could find. And then I'd get this pre-roll for free. That was almost like a slap in the face because like you'd open it, it'd smell gross. Like you'd hit it, and it was awful from every single standpoint.
The
So
thing in the
dry.
industry, the thing the industry about to me, the pre-roll is like bottom of the line. Now, that's coming in at the bottom of the line in the history of pre-roll, and you can fancy them up and dress them up with whatever, and throw concentrate on them to try to make them taste better, but it doesn't change what it is. But the thing that kills me is people that I respect in the industry or in the community, you know, as somebody who would probably be at least know what good weed was, to try to hand me some shit that's a pre-roll from some brand that's supporting them or they're supporting and tell me that it's good, and then I'll go fucking smoke it and be like, what the? Don't tell me you think that's good. That's fucking, now I can't respect your opinion about cannabis at all. What are you doing? So yeah,
That's a
I
big
hope
ask
everybody's
to.
listening. It's like, I mean, if I fucking spark up a joint and it's burning all canoeing in and it's fucking black, come on. Ooh, I have something specific in my mind. I need to, I need to stop with this. It's going down, going down the wrong way.
Spartan's not going to call anybody out, but I could see he wants to.
Yeah, yeah. Next time I see that person, I'm going to. I'll just talk to him about it. Like, we got to talk, man. What are we doing?
You actually thought that was good? What the fuck was that?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that to him. Like, I don't know if you remember, but I don't think you smoked what you handed me. Something must have got swished in your hand, or somebody gave you a free something. Gosh, that can't be good to you. Can't be.
It's like, if that is the case, let me show you some good weed real quick.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'll make sure I have some next time I see him.
Got a couple questions I want to get a chance to get to. We had Okiegrower earlier asked, just started building an 8x8 grow room in my garage, planning on 4x8 for flower, 4x8 for clone and veg. And such question, should I go sealed or vented room? I'm thinking since it's a garage, I'd probably want to vent it, but it just depends on what level R rating you've already got with your insulation in there. If you've got a good, really well sealed garage that isn't insulated well, then maybe you go with the sealing it route. But Oklahoma, I am pretty sure gets pretty hot and humid. So you're going to have to not only air condition, you're going to have to dehumidify or reheat. And so you're going to be battling some pretty intense weather and things like that. So I'm more on the vented side, and I think it makes CO2. You don't have to then buy bottles or tanks or whatever to inject it, but you can definitely crush it with a sealed room as well. So I'm curious if Spartan or any others have thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I have the dick answer, which is going to be the answer you're not want to hear. Is for one, if you're doing an 8x8 space, and you had that like exactly in half for flower and veg. I mean, you made it exact, used all the space. It's like, man, give yourself more space. Or to make it exact like that, you have to account for walls are going to have a certain thickness. You're losing that. So now your 4x4 is like a 3.85, and nothing that's 4x4 size fits in a 4x4 unless it's actually a 4x4. So make sure that if you're gonna, whatever size space you have, that if you want a 4x4 or you want a 4x8 or whatever you want, make sure that that's what finished up, that's what you have open to fit things into. That's one. And for two, should it be sealed or should it be vented? I would say both. I think I think you should build it for sealed, but have a vent option so that if say your light's going 100% and it's 100 degrees outside and it's just getting super hot in there and your HVAC's not keeping up, boom, vent it. You know what I mean? Or the power goes out. You can give a little bit of energy to an extract fan and not have to run an AC, but it gives you an option to keep maybe under code red conditions. So I would say I would try to do the seal just because you're in a garage and your garage is probably not sealed the best. So seal your room, but put a vent in it so that you can dump it if you need to for whatever reason. Maybe it gets too hot in there, you know what I mean? Boom, you can dump the room.
Yeah, I think it's the other way around though, Spartan. He's got a sealed room and a vent. So leave the vent on until it gets too hot, then seal it up and turn on the AC. Right? That's that's kind of what I did at the one spot that I was in, because until it got to that certain temperature, the venting would keep the temperature right. And then as soon as it
Outside,
couldn't
yeah.
hack it, yeah.
Then seal it up.
But,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
would
That's a
think,
general
the
electric
bulk.
cost throughout the grow. It's like how ideal do you want to get it? Like if you seal the room, you could keep it perfect,
perfect, yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
75. But if you're running the vent, you might be like, well, I could get away with like 80, 81, 85, like, and then like I'll crank the AC once it hits 90, or 88 or something. Like you make yourself a little more cheap home growier with
Cheaper.
the, trying to nickel and dime your way through if you're that type. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to grow the best, then those are two different options, right? Trying to grow the absolute cheapest versus trying to grow the absolute best are two different objectives and will ultimately change how we act. I know Noah, the grower, has some experience growing in garage type setups. And I'm curious if you have thoughts, feedback, or input for Okiegrower on this one.
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of what everybody was saying, but the other thing would be your goal should be to grow as best you can, as cheaply as you can. It should be both. But it should always be for that order. It should always be the best I can, but how do I do it the cheapest I can? The first thing I did was insulate my entire garage, and it was not cheap. And my room is like permanent. And sometimes I kind of regret that. Wish I had like, like I have a buddy who grows, and because he doesn't own his house, so he just kind of throws a wall up. It's, but it's not as insulated in the summertime. He always takes a break. So it just depends on what your goal is. Giving up your garage. It's been 10 years without a garage. Like I have no garage. Thankfully, I have a really, really, really big shed that came with my house. So that's awesome. So it's kind of like garage, but it ain't. So losing your garage is a commitment. Believe me, you might not think so now, and you're just like infatuated with growing. Like I spent a ton of my setup. Like the first thing we did was completely insulate the whole garage and then go from there. And then take the freaking spring thing out of the door so the door is stationary, put a wall up against the door. Like there's a lot of steps that we completely insulated. I did it with green board. I did the whole 9 yards 10 years ago. But I can, now I'm like looking at it, like if I ever go to sell this house, I'm gonna have to tear all this down. So there's you got to really think about what you're gonna do. Like I went completely overkill, and I'm not gonna lie, I really don't have any regrets because my environment is awesome. So it also matters, just like you said, like how committed are you to your environment? Because that's going to be a big thing. Like most growers, they're always asking about fertilizer and dirt and lighting and stuff. And the first thing I always ask them is, what's your temperature? What's your humidity? Environmental is a lot more important than people think. I mean, obviously you guys know that, but yeah, those are all factors into what you're going to want to do. And then just like I said, like the one thing is exactly what my buddy does. He vents the cool air in, and then when it gets too hot, he throws the AC on. So it's like all winter, all May up until like Mayish. He doesn't have to worry about AC because he's venting in cold air. And like sometimes I'm jealous. My mini split's cranking over there, and it's not. It probably costs $30-40 a month to run it, and he's just venting in that air. Whereas mine is the opposite. I have my exhaust fan sucking the air out. So, and it just depends on what your options are and what you want to do and what point you're coming from. I mean, if you're coming from a cheap, grow, I mean, doing the set in the garage, it probably isn't the cheapest way to do it. I mean, obviously a tent would be cheaper. It just depends.
But quality is cheaper in the long run. So sometimes investing a lot up front will actually save you money long term. So you haven't had to redo your garage 6 times or 2 times or 4. You did it once right. And you said, yep, I'm going to fucking be able to kill it in here for the next decade. And it's ROI'd itself probably 15 times over. So,
dude, and I had like, I don't think people understand. Like I had to put 24,000 down on my house. This is 10 years ago. And that doesn't sound like a lot. It was everything I had. And then like literally I had to like every dollar went into that grow room. And I'd only been growing for a couple of years. And I knew, how it goes. I figured I could do it, and I'd been growing, but just in a closet. I'd never grown a big grow room, and I didn't really know. I mean, and like I'm really thankful because I didn't hit spider mites or thrips or powdery mildew because a lot can go wrong. I mean, then on top of it, you can just get bad genetics. Like I remember multiple times, like people are like, "Oh, this is awesome," and you get like, it's backlogged, so you're counting on it being awesome. So you have clones of it. You have plants that are, you're running perpetually. You have them in your veg that are, 3 foot plus getting ready to put in, and then it's complete trash. Then what are you going to do? So it's like I just got really lucky. So I mean, I
think there was a little more than luck. I think we created.
Well, yeah, luck. But no, but I mean, like I said, like I mean, thankfully, like I knew at the time, like I had like this orange blossom. I'm just trying to remember. I had a strawberry cough. I had a purple lavender. I don't have any of these genetics anymore. I had my Hawaiian haze, and I knew all these were good. So at my old house, so I had like a month. I had like a month, my first and last. So I bought the house, and it took me a whole month to set the room up. You know what I mean? Like literally, I took a month to set that room up. And then with the other house, I was vegging. Like I turned like my kids' old room into just like a veg room. I had like this like old stand thing and an echo wing, a 400 watt in there, vegging these plants out. So as soon as that room went in, I could put in because I was broke. You know what I mean? Like so, it was like everything just came together. But I spent a lot of money. It took me a long time to recoup the money that I put into that room. And that was at first I didn't even have the mini split. It wasn't until like because I didn't really know what I was doing. I went and bought a really nice exhaust fan. I thought that would work. I had a little AC, but I was running 5,000 watts in there. I mean, there's just no way. You know what I mean? And then I got really lucky. I met a guy that had met a few times through a buddy. I seen him at the grocery store, and I knew the guy that owned the grocery store really well. And he said, "Hey, Noah's wanting to get a mini split in, and I know you just bought one." And he was like, "I'll install it for you for $200, which is a steal." The mini split that I had and put in my house last year cost me $1,000 to put in.
I was gonna say it's usually 1,000.
Dude,
Standard now.
You made out, dude.
Oh, dude. And that's what's funny is the guy,
He hooked it up.
guy named Chris on the store. He said, "You're getting a killer deal for $200 because I'm so cheap." I'm like, "Oh, will you do it for 100?" Like, now I'm like, "Holy cow, where does this guy have to install my other one?" You know what I mean? So, and then another thing is when you're installing those mini splits, the guy didn't put my drain tube at the right angle. So to this day, it drains into a trash can, and I have to like take it out. It's either that or drill into the hole in my wall. And on top of it, like I put like brand new siding, like hardy board plank on my house. So I don't want to do that. So it's like you really want to like set it up right the first time if it's going to be a more of a permanent structure.
Buy once, cry once.
Yeah, for sure. So
that's why Chicom Forge we put floor drain in each room so that we can take our humidifier and the AC drain tubes and just fucking stick them right in that fucking drain, and we don't have to worry about shit. It's so nice.
And if you flood anything, it's just like whatever. Okay, now we can just dump it. Like the drains are gonna take care of it.
Yep, squeegee the floor over to the drain.
That's awesome. Like I'm legit, no bullshit, jealous. That is like, hey, and then I know a lot of other growers that are like, I show them my grow room or on a picture or something like, whoa, and I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean. So everything's relative. Like, there's people. And of course, with guys that have grow rooms that are 5 times the size of mine. So it just depends on what is You
guys just
relative.
made me aware of something I never even considered. It's like there's sealed, there's vented, and now there's hybrid. It's half and half. It's like a hybrid system. You use a little bit of vented and a little bit of AC as needed. So it's like a hybrid system, not fully sealed, not fully vented. It's just a combination as needed. And you could do it either way. Like Spartan said, you could seal it and use the AC to keep it in the range until like the summer heat is too high and then vent at that point. Or you could go tau, like he said, and run the ventilation as long as possible until you have to kick the AC on, like last second kind of thing, only as needed. So depending on where you're at, I think it'll really depend on which one of those strategies will work best for you. But yeah, that was I think an interesting development that I hadn't really considered before. I know obviously a lot of people make advantage of stuff like that. And we've talked about lung rooms and things like that in the past, and using even like your home's central air conditioning and then positioning like your tent or your grow space in an area that gets good advantage of the, naturally built-in units. And like those mini splits, man, if when you spend $200, unfortunately with that cost saving sometimes comes the crooked whatever drain or whatever. So sometimes when you pay that full 1,000, you're like, hey, you know what, I paid the 1,000, but maybe he did it right and it was worth that every penny of that 1,000.
And the energy savings of those things anyway fucking is awesome.
Sure. Oh, they're awesome to have in just your house. I mean,
yeah, my mom has one in her house.
One of my buddies has
one of mine
in an ADU, which is like only 300 square feet. And this little mini split, just like, dude, this place feels so good every time. Most places I go, even like some $1 million homes around here don't have AC because we're so close to the coast. They just run a lot of fans and ventilation. But yeah, these newer ADUs, a lot of them just throw a little AC unit in there and it feels really good.
Those can get dirty. It's a kind of a pain in the butt to clean them, but you can clean them too. So be aware of that. I've cleaned quite a few of them.
Everything's got maintenance, unfortunately, as the reality of
Yeah.
life, right? If you use something, if it moves, if it does anything productive, eventually it will break down or need to be cleaned. And tis life, I guess, right? There's once you realize and identify that, you can start to buy replacement parts that are the wear parts, whether it's your car or something else. You can have little backup pieces and little things of equipment if you want to maintain your own little supplies, so that you don't have to necessarily replace the entire item. You can replace a part of it and save yourself some money long term. But sometimes it's worth buying the newest, greatest version because it's so much more efficient. So that is something to consider. But Kate Armstrong asked, any advice for dealing with slugs in my garden? I'm having a little war with them. I've tried using diatomaceous earth, but I have a slug crawl right through it like it was nothing. And I will say, Kate, you're not alone in that. A lot of people use diatomaceous earth with little to no effect or unsuccessful results versus slugs or other things. I think if it gets even a little bit wet, then it is ineffective. And if the slug is able to gather enough moisture going across your soil or grass or whatever is around it, I think that it could build up maybe a little bit of a resistance to, you know, depending on how thick or wide that strip is that it crawls across, just go right on through it. I've heard things like copper can really help slugs. I know salt actually kills them, like on contact. So those are a few of the off the top of Jack's head strategies. But I think Spartan's had some good answers on this one in the past. Maybe those were some of them, but I'll pass it to Spartan and see if he has any thoughts on the managing
Yeah, I
slugs.
would I would do the salt or the copper. I would set traps, beer traps for them. They love beer. Um, and hell, if you have ducks or you know somebody that has ducks and let them run through there, ducks will fucking go to town on eating some slugs. Uh, hell, ducks aren't that expensive. I'm saying down at the tractor, the farming fleet, go down there and get you a couple ducks. Let them run you around your garden for a few days and don't feed them. They'll get rid of your slugs real quick.
They make pretty good eggs too, right?
Big eggs. Yeah, rich. They've got bigger yolks, so they're really rich.
I can get down with that. I mean, duck is richer
Ducks
meat
can be
too.
kind of they like the water and they can be kind of filthy animals, but they can be clean too, I guess, if you really keep up on them. But they do a good job. They do a good job. They're good to have at least a couple around. They're loud. They make a lot of noise too.
So I seen a post where the dude put out the beer traps and the slugs were all up in on it, but it didn't look like they were killing them very quick. Like, do you got to take them out, or will they? Like,
It'll
I don't
kill them,
know.
but you can also, yeah, you could just dump it, right? You can just take it and
Yeah,
dump
there was like
it
10 of
somewhere.
them in the thing. Yeah.
Something with like the yeast or something they like the smell of it or something, and it's cheap enough. You can just make those slug traps with the beer. Another thing you can do is I would say, I wonder if that would work. Like for a lot of insects, you add some kind of surfactant like Dawn dish soap or something, and it makes it so that they sink into it and drown rather than be able to float on the top of it like a lot of the really light kinds of bugs. So that's always a good trick. I always like to do that.
Any
But
saponins, I think, or things that have saponifying effect, like soap
yeah,
nuts will do it, or yucca, I think extract is another way to. I think there's a term Doc always calls it. What are they? Makes water wetter, essentially. Wetting agents, I think, is the term.
surfactant.
Um, surfactant, yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah,
But same exact meaning, essentially. And like you're describing, that is a kind of cool hack. You would think that all water is kind of water, but you can actually change the physical structure of it a little bit. I even saw, and I'm not sure if this is true, like people spoke into water and then they froze it and then looked at like the icicles they produced and like different words produced different like fucking icicles. It was kind
seen
of trippy.
things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's got to be something to it, right? Just the sort of
energy.
vibration of your voice and a different word is going to produce a different
Sure.
effect on the water. So interesting to see, but less so on the spiritual hippy dippy side. I think in this, it's just sort of
So
ineffective.
So Tao, if you're really at war, I'm just saying this to you, Tao, and no one else is hearing this. If you're really at war, man, you can take like those little dishes, right? Little ceramic dish or something, fill it with beer to catch your slugs in, right? And you're wondering, will it kill them? Maybe not, but what will kill them is you take that little ceramic dish out and you fucking light it on fire. Then it will. That would get them.
How do you get it to light? Is it just the beer, or do you
The
add some
alcohol.
other?
Get that big torch.
Get the longer torch.
Like you're about to make yourself a creme brulee or something? Just
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you do.
escargot crulet.
Get you a nice camping torch like this. And then it doesn't matter if it is any alcohol left or not. You boil off whatever liquid's there and you just zap them. And
That's
then
gonna have some nice smells going on.
you're outside, man. It's all right. It's nature. Nature's cruel. Nature's cruel.
Nature smells.
And it's war,
I
man.
like that Spartan always resorts to fire. That's always like Spartan's
Hey,
go-to.
it's
Kill it
organic.
with fire.
It's
It
organic.
is organic. Hey, I mean, honestly, I'd rather that than a whole lot of other shit that they're using. Like, let's get real, glyphosate and all these other fucking pesticides. I see these guys go through with, there's electric ones that like when it hits weeds, they like blow them up with a little zap. There's
That
also
sounds cool.
ones that go through and torch it. So there's a whole lot of different
Yeah, it's
options
like
that farmers are
the
implementing.
yeah, like those flame torch weeders. I
Yeah, that's
mean,
what I'm talking about. They're literally just like
yeah.
blowing torches down onto, and some of them are even so specific they can go like between live plants and they're like torch in between the rows, and it doesn't affect the living plants at all.
See, I love it. Long
We
with
got
the
a question
fire.
from Sacred Terra for the American one. I found another Amy mail today, and it just started showing. Is it true later showing males are more potent? Tao?
Yeah, I answered in chat. That's what a lot of people say. I don't know for sure, but I would think like if you only did like 20 seeds, it's not going to be that much of a great indicator as much as if you did like 1,000, and maybe if it did make a difference, there was some that were way later. Uh, but it could make a difference. I don't know for real. But a lot of people have said that like more than just three. Like I've heard it from different sources. So
Subcool is the one that jumps to my mind. I know he
yeah,
thought, I think the
yeah.
earlier ones were like hemp or something, and
Mhm.
the later ones were more potent, and he bred some killer ass shit. So I tend to trust it if it comes from a source like that. But at the same time, I don't know that there has been conclusive scientific evidence to say if you pick the male that shows later, it will have a more potent result. 2020 Mendocino talked about when we used to do the Breeders Collective here right on the Cheap Home Grow Podcast Network with Adam
Mhm.
from 2020 and Canna Queen and Kyle and myself and others. Um, they talked about how fuck, I just lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about? Oh,
Talking
males.
about if
He
males
tested.
later, yeah,
He
sure
used the
later.
Gemma cert or Gamma cert, GEMMACERT, which is like a home testing device to take potency because he was between like 3 or 4 males or something, and they all tested like sub 1%, and then one of the males was like a 5 or 6% THC just randomly. All the other ones were like 0.8, 0.5, 0.3, 0.2, 1.1, and then there was like a 5.1 or something. So he's like, I'm gonna choose that 5.1 and just see how it works. And all the shit that he hit with that fucking killed it. I think it was like his whip mail or something like that. And everything that he hit it to was like frosty, potent, super powerful. And like, I think that might be a indicator more so than just saying like, I'm going to pick the latest one to show flower, because at least you're looking at some sort of potentially scientific indicator. Although I will give it to Mr. Soul, who says you don't look at the dad to see what the, you know, female offsprings uh, female characteristics are going to be. Like he said, like I think you don't look at the dad to see what the daughter's breasts are going to look like. I think is what Mr. Soul said, in so many words. I'm probably paraphrasing, but when you look at the female offspring, what they look like and how they develop isn't necessarily indicated by the father and their structure of the father, because a male plant is different than a female plant. And so even though that they can be hermaphrodite, you're looking for the smells and the potency and stuff that's coming from the female side. Although that said, like Space Dude was a male from the Space Queen cross, which is like one of my favorite crosses and produced a lot of my favorite stuff. Jack the Ripper being one of the strains that it was the parent of. And I think that when you do find a good male, like he was able to select in several cases, it can lead to tons of killer offspring. Like Chernobyl was another one that came from the Space Dude male, and I think Vortex is another one maybe that came from Space Dude as well. So I'm like, three of maybe his best strains came from like that male that was super effective. And I think if we look at another breeder, Rasta Jeff has one he calls like King something, King Solomon, I think.
Yep, it's a rise.
His Arise
Yeah.
male, and he said he has lab testing to prove it. He's been in Colorado in the legal markets. He'll see like, oh, I have this golden goat, and I cross it to Arise. Golden goat is like an 18%er, and then Arise brings the golden goat up to like 23 or 25 or something like that. And he has concrete, like Spartan was talking about earlier, very little other subjective variables. It's um, all controlled. They have the same lighting, the same nutrient systems, the same everything. It's all automated. The only thing that they change is the plant. And so he's been able to have pretty conclusive understanding of like how X, Y, and Z worked. And I'm glad that he and others are getting those experiences, one, just through time and seeing it in the markets, but two, with more technology, whether it's a chemistry on the home scale or, people getting access to sending stuff into labs where before you couldn't send stuff off without being worried about being arrested, like to a scientific center or something like that. So I think as we get more time, we'll probably figure out more favorable methods for selecting the best male to breed with. If people still use males, I'm going to try and be one of those for the longest time. I think we're seeing already a trend towards autoflowers, feminized, just feminized in general, and a lot less regular seed and a lot less males generally. So we'll see how long they stick around in the cannabis scene for, but I'm hopeful that Tao, myself, Spartan, and others will keep the reg seeds going and keep the males hot and throwing pollen.
I don't know. A lot of people saying that seedless watermelon that don't taste as good as the watermelon, the old school ones, where you had to spit out the seeds. So I'm wondering, like, if that's real or not.
I believe that, man.
Too much watermelon, but yeah, because
I believe it.
the recent watermelon I've ever had has like a weird texture in my head. Anyway, I don't know.
It's really like actually watery unless you get a really, really good one. Like most of them are just flavor, like very little flavor. Like the term watermelon makes sense because
Right.
it's almost watery. But if you get a good watermelon and you've had it, that fucking super danky dank watermelon,
Yeah,
that like the watermelon candy flavor is actually kind of emulated off of that
pure watermelon.
true watermelon. That
Yeah.
it's different, man. It's got an interesting history. Unfortunately, there's some going back to just like cannabis. There's some racist issues going to certain farmers wanting to grow it or not grow it, even in modern times. And so it's one of those ones that has an interesting history. I'm just glad it's still being grown and enjoyed all across the world, and it seems to yield pretty well. And I don't know. I saw an interesting situation. These people used a watermelon as a target with like a shotgun or something. They blew it up just for like, the effect. And then at the range, two fucking watermelons just started growing on their range. So they have like a mid size and like a little baby watermelon just growing. It was in Texas. And I was like, damn, that's pretty fucking cool, man. Like they literally didn't do anything
That's
other
cool.
than blast it. So you gotta love that nature finds a way, even in hectic situations like that. In the most unlikely
Yeah.
of situations.
Volunteers are the strongest freaking plants too. Every time I've ever had a volunteer, it's been yeah.
They're like, I'm hard to
crazy.
kill. I'm not going down without a
Oh,
fight.
I have volunteer cantaloupe. It overtook my entire middle bed completely, rolled off into the, walkways in between. Now you can't even walk there. And they're going into the other beds. They're going insane this year. I just let them go. Acorn squash. I'm gonna have a lot of them, I guess.
It is interesting, man. I think there's something to that resilient kind of children, whether it's a plant, animal, whatever. I saw an interesting study in psychology about actual people like that came from like a harder upbringing or whatever, had a little bit of a rough start, but there's like a certain percentage of them that like rose above even like the average population and like became super performers in basically all fields that they what business, sports, whatever they went into, they just crushed it despite having every single factor against them. And so I think these plants are I hate to anthropomorphize too much, but sometimes it just feels too cross relatable. And I think it also draws people into relating more to the plant and then feeling more of a connection to it. And I think that's an important underrated element of gardening is that we do have a connection. I'm fine with people naming them, even if it's not like the strain name, like call it Betty or Susie or whatever, name it female names, I think. But if you're trying to grow female plants, but yeah, I think everything we can do to deepen our connection with the plant is going to enrich our growing experience and potentially make us a better, more dedicated grower.
That's a pet peeve of mine. I'm not a big fan of using male names for female plants.
I'm totally with you there. We do have a great question from APM who says, Jack, didn't you flower under an HLG V spec, the veg spectrum, and got good results? HLG said I would get larf, but I thought I remembered you did. And I, in fact, have, and multiple times. And I'm blown away by how fucking fire. I have I want to say it's 5,000. It might be 6,500 Kelvin, though. I'm pretty sure it's the 6,500 Kelvin. It's like very blue, but the plants stay pretty stocky. I veg and flower under it. I've made seeds under it, like literally like a 24-inch or not even 24-inch, 12 to 18-inch tall plant, just like nugged up, beautiful buds and seeds. I've grown pure flower in there. I mean, I think the key is not overpopulating the grow space with it, having just one, maybe two plants under it, training them a little bit, and then flipping them relatively quickly. But I've been, like I said, just blown away by how well that little thing does. Um, I never actually thought it would be a possibility. And then when I did it, I was just like, wow, this is really effective. I'm just going to make this like a second flower space in certain circumstances where if I want to veg something a little bit larger in my flower space, I can get a little more out of that crop. And then I have basically two in flower at one time. And I don't necessarily have to go the perpetual route and I can still have a couple crops coming down, um, one after another type thing. But it all depends on your situation and your setup. But I do see a few more questions rolling in. And I'm curious if Spartan has any thoughts or comments on that one because you're in the lighting space now and working with a company that has tunable spectrums. But when you're in a fixed spectrum, have you grown with a veg spectrum in the past and tried to flower under that, or something that is even like 5,000 or above?
I'm currently growing under our veg spectrum, and I've been for a while now. I've just grown with the Master 6 veg. It's just a one spectrum, non-tunable veg light. And it's just get heavy on the blues, right? And I like that. I like how the plants, grow under it, like more tighter internode spacings. They don't stretch as much, and they seem to do well in it. But I haven't tried to put that into the flower room. No, I've never done that. I've always had flower lights in there, so something with some reds, some 660 reds, and now far reds. I love that addition. Ever since I've got one, now the base spectrum had a lot of our base. I think all our base spectrum and all our lights have it now. But to have that far red combo, it doesn't have to be a lot of far red. Under 10% of your light spectrum, a little bit of far red in there, so you can be in there with a combination with that 660 to trigger that Emerson. I was gonna say Anderson, Emerson effect. There's the old HLG box. And
Yeah, man, I've just got it sitting here. I sometimes I use it to prop up computers, and I've got some papers in there. But it's funny, I just forgot that this is like it's become a something else box for me at this point. It's not like my lighting box, but I was like, hey, I was wondering if the Spectrum was on there. I'm gonna have to look on Amazon. I think it is 6,500, but it's an HLG 65, and I've definitely gotten way more than 65 grams out of there. That thing cranks, dude.
so there you go. But yeah, I'm a fan of using a spectrum tailored to where the plant growth is.
I'm generally with you. I think like I built my flower spectrum with like extra boost in the 660, 730, and I added a tiny bit of 440, but like that's the tiny, like out of the 18 diodes that I added onto my cobs, uh, 12 of them plus 15 were red and three were blue. So like almost all of it was added in the red spectrum, just a tiny touch of blue, just because I wanted to give it a little bit of a peak. I've read some articles saying that it made more
And you
terpene
want
production
blue.
and anthocyanin production.
And yeah, and cannabinoids. You want more blue and flower, more blue in flower than what people are giving credit. We've gone so far the other way in flower now. A lot of people don't even have blue at all in flower, and that's not what you want. You want to have some blue in flower. You
And
want to have
a full white
reds
spectrum
too.
has a little, but it's like mostly green and yellow. If you look at it, it's like a little bit of blue, a bunch of green and yellow, and then like a little bit of red. But if you can spike those reds and blues just to crank it up a little bit more, I think that you'll get a better performance. And I do believe in the tunable spectrum because I know somebody that was growing with the same light I was growing with, and they made a similar upgrade with like a bar that added blues and reds. And before and after, they were growing the same cut, and they're like, I can see clearly it's frostier, it's purple, more purple on the ones that are supposed to turn purple. It's frostier, it smells better. It's just like every single measurable metric was getting better. So I'm like, I'm just gonna from the get-go get the same light and then deck it out with some extra little, not spectrum tuning, but spectrum adjusting to where I wanted it to be. And it's cool now that so many have the option right on there, from ThinkRow to Spartan with the um, master Grandmaster
Grandmaster
LEDs.
LEDs, yeah. Yep, I
And,
think I
and
think that's kind of the
science, I think, is another.
science is a big one. I think and that's going to be the future. I think there's going to be more and more of the companies you're going to see. I think Hortilex even has one now. I think Hortilex has one too.
Out of the box tunability is amazing. And you're right, Hortilux does have it. And theirs is just like from like, 2750 to like 3500 or something, but it's still like a more red spectrum to like a little bit bluer, but also red. And it's just cool that we have the option out of the box. You don't have to do what I did. You don't have to learn from Kyle Reeder, who's an electrician, how to. I was like thinking back to like stuff I learned in sixth grade about like circuits and like closed circuit versus open circuit, like making sure that I get light and not dark and not sparking when I'm not supposed to. But I also Ohm's law helped me out, who's also very capable in that field. But people like myself shouldn't have to be wiring up things like that at home. I think it's better when you can have something out of the box. Not to say that I'm against DIYers. You can save money. Some of the best ways to uh, back in the early days of LEDs, Rapid LED was a great provider of like pucks of cobs and bars and different things. And they still might be. I haven't been on there in years, but they provided a bunch of different options. So you could basically build your own grow light for whatever size space that you had. And you could get like little subframes and like hang the lights in different. So you could kind of tinker and build and DIY a little bit. And what has come of that is a grand kind of conform conforming of engineering happened. We all saw the best form factor was the bars. Every single company has bars. Even HLG has moved to maybe not pure bars, but like their things look more like a bar light than it ever did before. Like mine's a complete square rectangle, where now like their Diablos and Scorpions or whatever, they have like little I think they I can't remember, PCBs or QCBs or something like that. They have a special name that I like to call their LED little sections. But yeah, they're just kind of like dangling off the end, and they're in rows of
Reflectors.
like three or four reflector. Yeah, and some of them do have reflectors, and that's another thing. Like, do you use reflector or not use reflector? Timber, who I got my light from, who's a cob company, initially had reflectors, and then they took them off once they found it was actually a 10% increase in efficiency. So mine came without them, but I'd seen people still using them, and that would be something I'd let them know.
Or lenses. That's another one. Science uses lenses
Hot
to,
topic.
yeah, but it's kind of cool
They
the
believe it.
approach. I like they said during the light wars thing that they did a bunch of people were in a bunch of light companies, and they said that they put the optics on there to specifically spread the light so it came in at different angles into the plant rather than just straight down onto the plant. But they did lose efficiency, like you said, and I can't remember what the efficiency loss was on top of my head, so I don't want to speak on it publicly because I don't want to say the wrong number, but it raised my eyebrows, and I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah, 10% was the number with timber, and they were very open about it, and that's why they just flat out
I want to say
removed
it was
it.
10% or a little bit more, and I was like, wow.
They make a cool light, and I love that they were, I think, on the early end of pioneering the spectrum tuning. I think Science may have been the first one I saw, then ThinkGrow LED, and then Grandmaster, I think, is the most recent addition to the group. There's the Grow Cropter was reviewed by, um, you know, I can't think of his name now, Migro, and that had tunable spectrum. So there's a lot of different companies out there that have it, and it's not necessarily unique to one, but I do think that certain companies are definitely doing a better job with it than others. So it's worth looking around and investigating to try and find
Sure,
the best
for
option
sure.
for you.
Yep, for sure. Make sure you're getting quality equipment and then customer service and warranties, all that happy stuff. But I think it's the future, though. I think that in the future you're gonna have some sort of tunability. It's just if you don't have it, why would somebody pay the same price for something that doesn't have it when you can get it that does?
Yeah, I think the thing will be the budget lights will not have it, and then the little bit next tier up. So like the very, very budget tier won't have it. And then even like I think like the regular tier will offer that as a sort of standard option. And then like the top tier will have like ultra tunability. Like some will be like
Yeah,
a
levels of
yeah.
tunability for sure. Like, two channels of tunability or four channels of tunability or eight, just craziness.
Yeah. How much sort of tunability do you want? And I think that people will pay more to have more control. Just like I've seen there's a reef fish tanks are a big space in a community. And I've seen some of these crazy LED lights and UV lights and things like that that are used to grow corals. And so there's really interesting thoughts, and some of them even like simulate storms and stuff like above the corals with like lightning and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I think
Wow.
they're similar to us in a sense that they're trying to mimic nature and create a really difficult to necessarily replicate environment that is hard to keep consistent throughout the year, depending on where you live. And it increases their electric bill a lot. I had a roommate in college who, funny enough, had a fish tank, and he ended up getting two. He had like a 55-gallon and a 60-gallon. Like one, he had like a lionfish, and the other one, he had like a clownfish, like Nemo or whatever, and
Oh
the
yeah,
Dory and everything, and all the
Jake's got
different
a
little.
bunch of clownfish. He's bred some successfully. They've already had their first babies.
That's awesome, man. Breeders gonna
Yeah,
breed. I
that's
think
right.
that's what Neville from the seed bank said. He bred like pigeons and stuff when he was a kid, or some sort of finches, I think, some birds. And I think that the curiosity of somebody who wants to breed a plant will be interested, whether it's an animal like Mr. Soul breeds alpacas, I think, or llamas or something like that. He has one of those big furry things on his farm out there in Colorado, and so he just finds it interesting. I think that there's really a beauty to people that have the passion for it, because there's so much genetic diversity is just amazing in whether it's cannabis farming or agriculture or whatever. Like it, the deeper you get into it, the wilder it is. Like I was just looking at some eggs today, and like the heritage fucking eggs that are like brown with the spots or the blue eggs, and some people are lucky enough to get them local, but you can buy them some places. Even Walmart's got them now. Freaking Happy Eggs at Walmart are killing the game. $6 for a dozen. I'm down with that. 50 cents an egg is for a real good egg. I think is decent. But that aside, um, it's definitely nice to see genetic diversity across the board, because going back to the very first question from Kade Armstrong, crab apples are actually the number one rootstock. Every single other apple is grown on a crab apple rootstock because of the rapid growing and the pest resistance and disease resistance. So if you have a Granny Smith or a Cosmic Crisp or whatever it is, it's coming from something that was grafted onto another apple rootstock. And just like bananas, that sort of makes a sort of global risk and issue where if that crab apple becomes vulnerable to some pests, then we might have some giant issues later on. So I think it's good to preserve diversity. There's some guy who's like kept and preserved hundreds of apples. You could see them all on like this table, and he has all the different flavors and colors and stuff. It's really, really, he's like the modern Johnny Appleseed. So there are people out there that are doing it, and a variety of fields. So I'm happy to see that. But we got a great question, and we have so many questions that we're just going to keep rolling. Since we got a deep enough panel, I'd say with the four of us, we'll keep doing questions all the way until the end of it, and probably not open up the panel this week. But Buckaroo Howdy says, boys, when making seeds, how long do you let your plants live? And I like 7 or 8 weeks minimum after pollination, and I try to pollinate in like weeks 2 to 3. So 10, 11, maybe 12 weeks, like 1 or 2 weeks longer than I normally would. And I really think that full 8 weeks, if you can, from the time of pollination to get a mature seed is ideal, but you can definitely get away with less. And I know Spartan and Tau also make seeds, so I'll pass it to Spartan.
I let that sucker go well past when I would harvest it, and I let it like when I see seeds falling out of that. I was gonna say the B word. Damn, I'm in a bad mood. When I see seeds fall out of that beautiful mother plant, uh, on its own because they're the calyx is dried all up and the leaves have all like shriveled up. When they get really finished, they'll fall out right on their own. And I also like to kind of like peek at them in the buds. I might take like a sharp instrument, like I don't know, a toothpick or something, and just peel back the calyx and try to get a look at the seeds and make sure that the developed seeds. I don't want, green underdeveloped seeds. I want good dark seeds. And I'm not interested in harvesting the bud at all. So who cares about the harvest window on the bud, right? So just let that plant go on past, the regular harvest window on the bud and give it time to finish all the seeds. I would put something down to catch seeds that fall down because you'd be surprised how many seeds will fall out of that thing, even when you're just moving it around. Have something like a garbage bag, something down there to catch some
Hmm.
seeds. There'll be quite a few.
I agree with that. Do you ever have you experienced, and I don't know if this was some other issue, but I feel like when I try to push it almost to the point where it looked like it was like dead and like crinkly and like shriveling up and like way, way, way past harvest to get like the maximum number of mature seeds. I had some that got a little bit of like a orangish, almost like a rust color on like the exterior of the seed. I'm curious if either of you have ever seen that or had any. I didn't notice any negative. They pop.
I
I don't tend to put those ones in packs.
Yeah, I haven't seen that before, but I wouldn't be worried about anything. It's like you can't go too long because how does nature do it, man? It sits there all
Yeah, they
fucking
drop
all
winter.
yeah, they wait till that plant dies, shrivels up, and the winds blow the seeds out or whatever that happens until finally the seeds. Some of them will fucking
It'll
sprout. I've seen it
freeze.
in the
I mean,
bud.
I was gonna say,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely put something underneath it. I had a volunteer that pollinated one of my crops once that it was all the way in the back corner, and it was a volunteer from a seed run that I had. And I guess I put some other plants in there before it was like I took them out. But yeah, I let them go as long as I can. And I'll mention what Jeff Jeff says. He changes once he knows it's pollinated, he'll put them on 18 and 6 again and let them ripen up under a veg cycle. And that's an option. But whenever I've done it, I always left it on 12 and 12 and just let them go as long as I can. Or if I think the plant has no more life or no more energy to give to the seeds, then I would take it. I took a couple like that. But yeah, I did the whole plant and the whole room. So I wouldn't just poke, I would take a whole nug off, like, and check it, a lower nug, take a whole lower nug off and rip it apart, see if the seeds are done or not. But if you're only doing a branch or two, that's even and yeah, it depends also what your goal was, and if you could do it real early, if you pollinate real early, you get less seeds, but they'll be more mature at a regular time of harvest.
Way less seeds. I will
Yeah,
caution
way
that if
less
you
seeds. Oh
you
yeah,
pollinate right when they start throwing pistils, you might get 100 seeds off of your
yeah,
plant if it's
maybe.
a small
Yep.
plant. If you do it
Yeah,
a week later, 2 weeks later, you might get 1,000 seeds off of your plant. So there's like
yeah.
potentially a 10x difference in when you pollinate. So that's something I would like to throw out there that I've seen
And
from.
yeah, if you want to make the most, I go with what Subcool pretty much recommendations around. I think he was saying around 20 21 days.
Yeah, that's about when I do it.
And if you know your plant well enough, then you'll know like how long flower time is. And but yeah, when you see them white hairs standing straight out, like reaching for pollen, you know that, yeah. And you'll know if you hit them with pollen. Like that's why I don't like saving pollen. I like having a live male plant. I like skin on skin when I breed. But if you have pollen that you're just using, you'll know in a couple of days. You can see that the hairs will definitely change in 3 days, if not sooner. And
Yeah, they go from like straight out and white to like curled up and orangish reddish,
yeah, starting with the discoloration for sure. But
which
yeah,
is
I
like
would say
way
let them
sooner
go
than
as
you'd
long
be
as you
used to
can.
seeing it in flower.
Yep. Yeah, that's how a lot of people figure out they had herbs when they see the white hair is not white anymore. They're like, what the hell's going on in here? And then they find that herb.
And then you find seeds in the buds. I will make a correction. Earlier, I said my HLG was potentially 6,500 Kelvin. I did follow up with my Amazon purchase of it way back in the day, and it's 4,000 Kelvin. So just a little bit above what a normal flowering spectrum is, about 3,500 Kelvin. Some people run 3,000 or 2,750. I've seen very few run the 2,500 because that's getting really into the deep red end of the spectrum. But with as much 660 as people are adding, the total number that I was just talking about, the lower the number is, the redder it is, the higher it is, the bluer it is. So 4,000 Kelvin is a little on the blue end, but it's still within like that 3 to 4,000 range of like a white light. They might call it like a soft white, or if it's more red, or like a daylight white if it's more blue. When you see it in like Home Depot or wherever at the corner store where they're selling lights, but it a lot of them have 660 nanometer, which is red, or 440 nanometer, which is blue, or similar ranges to add kind of bonuses to the spectrum. And Buckaroo says pollinated in week 3. Do I wait till week 9 or longer? And in my case, I would say week 11 if I pollinated week 3. So I think week 10 is pretty standard for a lot of plants. Actually, a lot of people don't push them that long, but 9 is doable, but 10 is good for a lot of plants that people think are done sooner. But it's also preference. But when it comes to seeds, I don't think really any denying a white premature seed is not as good as a seed that's more developed, either gray or brown or tiger striped. Dark colors, I think, are better seeds for sure. So, do you guys have any thoughts on he said he pollinated week 3, week 9 or longer. So I'm going to say 11. Spartan, do you have any thought on that before we check out Noah's Garden?
Yeah, I say longer. I say the longer.
As long as possible, still kind of
Yeah, yeah.
let it ride.
Just let
How
it
about you,
ride.
Chow?
Give it as much time as possible to make a good seed.
Yeah, like I say, do it as long as possible unless it's dead. But I mean, I think 6 weeks, you get viable seeds in 6 weeks, but let it go as long as you possibly can. Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of viable, these are some viable plants right here, looking beautiful. Noah, the grower. Why don't you tell us what we're looking at over here?
Yeah, okay. So this one right here on the outside, I always do the outside. That's the Girl Scout cookie forum, and then this is all dosilato, and this is 3 duct tapes and 1 Sherbaceo. So
Nice.
yeah,
Quite
this
the
is day
mix.
24 right here, and I'm just now lollipopping a little bit while I'm doing the show with you guys, and this right here's got 1 week. This is like day 56 or 57 from flip to 12-12 flower. And I had to rush them in. That's why they're all kind of I usually only have like 2 or 3 in their life, but I've been just so
Can you point
behind
up a little
and
higher?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, this is that's the Girl Scout cookie form. You can see, look how small the nugs are compared to the dosilato.
Oh
But
yeah. Old school versus
but
new school.
yeah, and the plants are a lot smaller. I put them up on containers just to push them up so they would be in the net. I only vegged them for like 5-6 weeks. I had to smack them in, and these ones were like way far behind, and so they're kind of crowded. I'm trying to uncrowd them, move them, bend them a little bit, low stress training, trying to get the leaves tucked, trying to take off, lollipop a lot up. When they're big like that, that's why I got a big long. That's like at least 2 feet that I cut off. So it's not taking away from that energy at the tops. But
Yeah, that lower bit isn't going to get enough light to be worth anything or produce
no,
much. So,
no, it's not.
especially
And
when you've got such a nice uniform kind of trellis at the top, they push through it a little bit, but it's keeping a fairly solid set on both sides. You can see they're in similar ranges as all the other plants and filled out pretty densely in every single square.
Yeah.
yeah, real quick, I wanted to ask you guys if any of you guys ever grown permanent marker.
Haven't grown it. I've smoked it. I do like it
I haven't grown it, no.
I just got it. So
I haven't grown it either. Does it smell like a permanent marker?
a little bit.
well, I don't know. I just got a small plant of it, and the guy that I was talking to about it said there's two. When he was pheno hunting it, there was 2 main phenos. One is like more for like the flower, and one is more like for like like hash and stuff. I got the flower pheno of it because that's what I am. I'm a flower guy. So we'll see what happens. It's new. It's supposed to be like 35% THC or something. I mean, because I have researched it a little bit.
Hey, I thought you weren't going to take in clones from anyone anymore. No.
Hey, you know what?
Yet.
Listen, I swear to God, I took that plant
Don't
and I
swear to
treated
God.
it. I treated the soil
I
and
was
I
right here. You don't have
treated
to swear to him.
I treated the soil and I treated the plant itself before I even put it in my room. And you're right. But the
All
place that I
right.
got it from is very reputable, and I'm like I said yeah, but I'm paranoid.
All right.
So
Good.
once
to
you
be
get drip
paranoid.
from somebody that you trust, I mean, this is another pretty high end place. So, but I don't trust anything. You know what I mean? So it's
Always
always
quarantine. Always treat.
I did quarantine entry, but you're still taking a risk, man. I mean,
Oh, for sure. But sometimes the risk is the juice is worth the squeeze on a lot of them. Actually, the hype
well,
stuff
this
is
this
sometimes
is supposed
actually
to be
fire.
pretty good. Yeah. So I took a chance.
I'm with you, man. I like popping seeds, and even popping seeds, there's a little bit of a chance you could get a Hermie, you could get, shit pheno that's just like low smell, low yield. I had one of the most respected breeders on the industry. I grew one of their strains, and it was so terrible, and I just felt really bad about myself. And then I tried it from a really, really big group out here that like crushes 710 Labs. I'll shout them out. I think they make great hash and good flour. And then I got the strain. It was called More Cowbell, which is a fun name. I won't throw the breeder under the bus, but many of you might already know. But man, it was the lowest potency, lowest odor, like lowest yield. It was the worst plant I've ever grown, bar none. I think I gave those seeds away to somebody. Spartan's like, if something's that bad, just don't grow it again. Don't waste your time. And I was like, you know what? That's a fucking good idea. I'm not gonna try and make this shitty thing. And then when I tried the 710 labs, like maybe a month or a week or however long later, I was like, oh fuck, like theirs sucked too. Like it was shitty. And like they normally grow really fire stuff. So I'm like, it must have just been that strain. Like, or you know what? Maybe it's like Mac 1 and everybody else loves it. And it's just not for my endocannabinoid system. It just like didn't stimulate me how I'm supposed to be stimulated by cannabis. Because I was like, wow, this is like literally the worst that I've ever grown myself personally. And I was like, I can't even give this stuff away. I can't even smoke this stuff. Like other people actually found it decent, but I don't know. Sometimes, anyway, I'll stop bashing on that and get to APM asked a good question.
He's having PTSD flashbacks right now.
You're seeing Jack's 1,000-mile
I've been
stare. Because it's truth, man. You can have some fucked up experiences from seeds, and you can feel jaded after you spend like 100+ days. You veg it out, flower it. But that's you know what? It wouldn't be pheno hunting if you didn't find a few shit phenos every now and then to make you appreciate the fucking gems.
I was just say it would be pheno hunting unless you get mostly shitty phenos.
No, time out now.
I
Time
get
out.
lucky. I get mostly. I'd say like 70 to 80% of the shit I've
Okay, this is
is
all
good. And then there's like 10 to 20 is great.
All subjective, but I won't say shitty, but I'll say non-keeper phenos.
Yeah.
I'm fair with that. They're smokable, but you're not going to keep it. You know, you're like, oh, I'll smoke. I'm happy I grew up once.
They're worth smoking. It might even taste good, but it only yielded a quarter ounce.
I'm just saying,
it's really potent, but it has no flavor. But you know, like it's all. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it's rare now that I find shit that is junk when I grow it. Total junk.
I wouldn't say junk.
But it's not
stuff that looks really great.
Either,
that doesn't make me.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's breeding for terps and nobody's breeding for highs, and that's my biggest gripe right now in the industry.
I'm actually with you on that because as somebody who enjoys terps, you can get terps from a fucking essential oil. You can go buy pinene terpenes. You could go buy organic pinene essential oil, put it in your diffuser, and then have the same amount of pinene that'd be, you know, blowing out everything. If you're just going to worry about pinene and you're not going to worry about the effect, the THCV is what is part of what makes fucking Jack the Ripper and you know, Jack's Cleaner and some of these other strains from Sub that I love so much amazing. It's not just the pinene, it's not just the limonene, it's not just the. It's so easy to read Leafly's top 10 terpenes and think, oh, I need limonene in this strain. It's going to make me happy and it's going to whatever. You know,
toss in the fact that you know, at least for my situation, I have access to make my stuff concentrate. So I can get, you know, a 1% terpene thing, but I'm getting it concentrated. It's still going to be terpene enough for me. So what's the high going to be like? What's the experience going to be like? What's the medicinal value going to be like? There's definitely strains out there that have experiences, that have medicinal value. Absolutely. But it's not like forefront what people are breeding for right now. They just want things that taste like candy or things that taste like.
Well, you know, not everybody even now. Time out.
No, I'm not saying not everybody. I'm saying the general direction of the market.
Yeah, you're right. Those plants that I was showing though, that shit is the Ronberry by Cheesequake, and the Ronberry. The only reason I kept that stupid thing is because when I smoked it, the way it got me high was so different than all the rest of the fire.
I'd love to hear, man.
And it was like it got me fucked up. So, but I never grew it out yet. A couple other people did. I got to find out what it was like for them. But for me, man, it got me like fucked up.
Dude, anything like Romulan, weird. A lot of subcool stuff. I think the potency comes from that Romulan, and the Romulan is known. It's like based on, I think, Star Trek. I'm not a Trekkie, so sorry to all y'all out there that are. But I think Romulan have like this like dent in their head, like the characters. They have like a
big head or something.
Like it's like a, you know, not pre-CGI, but they like would put like a mold or something like a headpiece on these character actors to make them look like they had some sort of. They were a different species from a different planet.
Google that shit.
The Romulan. And part of the reason they called it Romulan was it got you so high, so to speak, that you felt like you had a dent in your fucking head because it was just fucking impacting you so heavily. So I think that the Romulan definitely has a lot of potency, and I think I got to shout out DJ Short because I think he gets less and less love every year. He gets older and lesser known. He's kind of a low key guy, and there are the cult followers who know who he is and have read his book and are inspired by his breeding techniques. But he's said from the beginning, I breed for experience. I breed for the effect although he's famous for the blueberry and he's famous for some of the other strains, he's always talked about you got to breed for effect because that's what we use it for at the end of the day for the majority of medical users and a lot of general people across the board. We do have another question from APM who asked Spartan Grown, what do you think about running 2 lights side by side compared to running one bigger light the size of the 2 combined wattage wise? So like a 400 and a 400 watt light making an 800 versus like an 800 or a 350 to 700 versus a pure 700.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to fix my camera while I'm doing this. Yeah, there's advantages to doing both, right? Okay, and I'll start with having 2 lights. 2 lights, there's advantages because if one goes down, you still have light. That's a huge advantage. It's more modular, which means that if you have multiple plants under that light, it's not just one plant, and they might be different sizes. You can keep one closer to the correct height above the plant to get the right PPFT. So there's some really good advantages there. The side lighting, like usually in most grow lights, if you look at the par, is it the par map or whatever, the par map of the light, you'll see that the light intensity really drops off on the edges. But if you put 2 lights next to each other, that drop off on the edge where there's another light, that's no longer a problem because together they pick up for each other. So you wouldn't get that intensity drop off. You'd still have it on the edges though. Now, if you had a full light, one of the biggest advantages is when you have a light that's usually 4x4 or 5x5, it's going to give you options of lights that have all of the options, all of the bells and whistles. When you get to these smaller lights that you're breaking up spaces, but they're smaller lights, they tend to be made with some of the more budget diodes, the more budget materials, and they're not top of the line. I'm not saying there's none out there. So look for that. Look at the efficiency numbers. Still look at all of the numbers that you normally would at these top end lights. Look at those when you're looking at these other size lights. And as long as they match and it's still putting out the output that you need for your plants, then you can be okay with it. But
And Spartan,
I really like the one light.
Spartan, you might know this question, the answer to this definitely better than me. What about, is there different penetration in LED lights? Like
Well, that's where there's the whole push for the side lighting and the underlighting, right? So the whole push for side lighting and underlighting is to slam your light is closer to the top of the canopy of your light and dim it. Take that saved electricity and slap that underneath and on the sides, and now you've engulfed your plant with light, like in nature where the light is coming in from all the different angles.
Right.
That's kind of the idea. So
that's better than trying to do a type lighting more intense, right? Because
it's better. Yeah, it's better than it's more energy
Yeah.
efficient. It's the more energy efficient approach, I guess, is the best way to say it.
So there's got to be a limit.
Like, yeah, rather than hanging lights higher and slamming power into them, and so you have an even spread everywhere. That's the common practice. Really high bay lighting, because you can really even out the spread if you hang them high enough and light bounces enough, and you just slam energy through there. Just put enough light into the room, and even penetration. But that's costly too.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's inefficient. Ultimately, it would.
Yeah.
I think it'd be better if they had the control of just lighting the grow spaces and not the walk spaces as much. And that's getting down to like but I will say in these industries, it comes down to a few percentages. If I could be a few percent cheaper or a few dollars cheaper per pound or whatever it is. So that does
it's
make
all
a difference.
There's so many logistical, like for example, just one thing for a commercial grow. There's a lot of areas have rebates for the commercial growers if they'll use LED lighting, and they're writing up these LED lighting plans with side lightings, and it's still because they're comparing it with a traditional 1,000-watt HPS. So if you envelop your plant with lighting, the top lighting and all lighting included, and you're still under that 1,000-watt HPS, you could be getting rebates, and it's silly. Some people are getting these things for half off or close to free or free. And
some states there are free. I mean, I know people that got because it's more efficient for the state to pay them to stop using the 1,000-watt HPS at 1,000 of them per grow to switch over to 600-watt or 700-watt or 800-watt or whatever it is that replaces it. And then they don't have to have the bulb recycling at the the same rates every 6 months or a year.
And
So
I
there's
think
a
it's
lot
really,
of
it's really pushing this kind of technology is those rebates. So people are like, yeah, it costs me nothing. Why don't I just try it? You know, why don't I just throw it in there now and future proof it for a little bit?
Real quick
But then you
question
have
from the
places like one last thing, and then you got places like California that are legitimately trying to legislate. You can't even use HPS. You have to use LED.
That was
right.
supposed to be
That's what,
gone like a year ago or something, but
Which
it never
I'm an
actually happened.
LED guy, but I'm not. I think that's bullshit. I don't like any fucking government trying to tell me I have to do anything, honestly.
I hate
do
to
you
say it
think
though,
there'll
it's
come a time? Do you think there'll come a time where they say we don't want you growing indoors? I was thinking about this the other day. I've actually thought about it a few times, but I figured I'd run it past you guys to see what you think. I'm
Well,
talking like
you
10
know what
years,
I
20
think.
years.
I think I don't give a fuck what they say. They
you don't
told us
even have
Oh
to
that they
hell
think
can have
yeah!
it
you
before. You know what I'm
You
saying?
can only
you don't
do
even have to think into the future
commercially,
though. They're already calling
really.
for it. They're saying home grows
Right.
are too dangerous. They're going to start
Yeah.
fires. They're using too much electricity. The electrical grid is 5 or 10% used by illicit cannabis growers or whatever they're going to try and paint us out to be. Even if you're a
Oh, but I
licensed,
could grow a
whatever.
tomato. That's okay. I could grow a tomato and have a little vegetable
I'm with
garden.
you 1,000%. I'm gonna keep
Have
growing
that
no
in my
matter what the
house.
fuck. I have my freedom. I have my home, and you're not coming in, so I can do what I want in my home. And if I'm not, breaking actual major laws that fucking matter and harm people, then I'm not gonna have any problems. So I pay my electric bill, and I'm gonna grow what I want, where I want, when I want. And I think that people should adopt, similar policies. Potentially getting to the question on light. Um, Dr. MJ did a test where he had a light that was built. And before I get into that, to your comment, I do agree that most of the time you have, let's say, a 2x4 light versus a 4x4 light. The 2x4 light will, if it isn't using cheaper materials, which often happens, like Spartan said, so I do agree, it will use the same materials. Let's call it a 5013B or whatever the fuck the diode is. Um, Samsung LM301B, I think, is like one of the popular ones, right? There's Osram 660s, whatever. So pick your brand, pick your top efficiency or whatever. But instead of them being, there's, and I'll just use this as a nice round number, there's 1,000 of those diodes on the 4x4. On the 2x4, you would think, okay, it's half the size, so I should get 500 diodes, right? And wrong. A lot of the time, you're not counting. And most of these things are like, oh, well, that's the veg light because it's a 2x4. It's for a smaller area. They're not going to need as much power as the flower lights. We're going to give it 350 diodes or 400 diodes or 450. And you might think, 50 diodes, whatever, who really cares? It does make a difference. And so stuff like that does ultimately come into mattering and what you're paying at the wall, the electric bill, and the efficiency of how much you have to crank it and how much you can get back from that light, the ultimate light that's produced from the unit per that wattage. It's not just 700 watts versus 700 watts. If I go and get a 20-year-old LED that's blurple and it's got a zero point 0.5, wattage efficiency or whatever, versus the modern stuff that's like 3.3 or 2.8 or whatever, like the real high end of efficiency, you're going to see a major difference in what you're able to get on a production. And we can't pretend that those efficiencies don't actually matter. Like the laws of thermodynamics exist, and people much smarter than myself can explain them to the finite thing. But like I just memorize the stuff that matters. Like there's 3,400-ish BTUs per 1,000 watts, whether it's LED or HPS. But what matters is what the plant is getting up front and where the heat is distributed. The plant's getting 90+% of that energy is being directly turned into light, which the plant is using to grow, versus a good portion of it is being turned into heat, which is being dumped onto the grow, which has to be, Noah said earlier very astutely. If you can control the environment, then you're going to do well. And like that's the number one question: what's your heat, or what's your temperature, what's your humidity? Like most people, if that's out of whack, then get that under control if you can. Many of them can't because the setup and situation. But yeah, it's easy to overthink things and underestimate the role of environment. And sometimes your lighting actually will. Like in my case, when I first started back, I was growing with a light for a 3x3 and a 3x1.5. So I had 9 square footage of light for a 5 square foot space. I was battling heat all the time. I was battling too much light all the time. So when I scaled back to a more appropriate light, I started, cranking out much better results. So it's worth considering that kind of stuff. And the 2x4 next to the 4x4 in Doc's tests, the 2x4s, when they were measured individually, put out a certain efficiency, but when you measured them side by side, they actually got a little bit higher efficiency. And like Spartan was saying, like the crossover, and even though there is a little drop off on the walls with tents and how reflective they are, if you're running two of them side by side, it's gonna be more efficient than just one of itself. But comparing one of itself to a, you know, this wasn't done, uh, a 4x4 light, but he's done that separately in other videos, and you can see there's much higher efficiency lights than that 2x4 Mars Hydro light. He's tested several other brands, and you can get them from many other companies, from Geek Beast to Spartan with GML, and there's many more efficient companies. Spider Farmer and those others are more of the budget end, are trying to get you in on a budget with a decent product. I will say, Spider Farmer and Geek Beast and what's the I think there's Spider Farmer that I was mentioning, but or Mars Hydro. I don't like their marketing because they DM the shit out of people and it's really annoying sometimes. But aside from that, they do make a decent light at a decent price, and they tend to take care of people if it does break down in modern times. And so I won't throw them too much under the bus. I think they're getting people growing, and that's what it's all about. Cheap home grow, getting people growing. Spartan Grown. I know this is normally the time when we let you get going, so we got about 15 minutes left before you go to the Michigan Bros Grow Show. So any final thoughts and shout outs before you get running?
No, I much love to all the people out there that's still growing, and all the companies out there helping people to do that. I don't I've got love for all the companies. I just, as long as you're not deceptive and you're just cool, then we can all be cool. We can all keep on growing, and that's how we win. Keep on growing at home. Like the question earlier about, are they gonna eventually say don't grow? Well, they did do that eventually. I mean, we came from that, and here we are still. Thank God for that. So just keep on growing. Much love, everybody.
It's easy to forget, man.
Peace out,
For
Spartan.
70 plus years or whatever, we made it illegal and told people no, no, no. And the rebels, with a cause, carried it on. And they were champions of the plant and good stewards of the plant, so that we can all still enjoy it to this day. So thankful to all of them and many of you out there in this very audience, Tao and others, and Noah and Spartan, all of us. At times, we were a little bit of a rebel with a cause. And I think it was a very just one. And I'm happy to see it has moved in the right direction. Cheers, Spartan. Thank you so much. We do have another question. I want to make sure we get to these. I said we'll kind of lightning round, but we've, I think, been taking the appropriate amount of time and got a good flow of rolling in. We got Donkey Populous, who says, Chief Home Grow, how do you time pollination, starting from seed all the same time or starting from clone offset? What are the benefits or the differences? I personally like to, and in my experience, I've only made taken an F1 to an F2 to an F3. And in doing that, I started the males and the females at the same time. I selected the best plants. I had them sex tested, so I knew which ones were male and which ones were female in very early veg, like before day 30. And I made selections at that point just based on growth structure, smells, and other things. And then I flipped them a lot of flower at the same time and then let them do their thing. Kept the best male and had it pollinate. I was considering maybe I actually, in one case, I pulled the male out and I collected pollen and I waited like a week later to pollinate the plant because I think the male was going to be ready sooner than I wanted to pollinate the plants. But people, when you keep a male like a clone, you always have to have a sort of offset. And I've heard people will flip the females maybe a week before they flip the male because the male can be ready and throwing pollen at like day 14, where you want the females maybe pollinated at like day 21. So I guess that would be my general take on that question of the offsets. Benefits, I think growing them all from seed together, I think it's just like it's how it was done in nature. I know it's kind of hippy dippy, but if you can emulate it in a sense that makes sense and you're not like really fighting it, why not, right? So the plants grow side by side in nature, they pollinate each other in nature, they drop the seed in nature, and then I'm not going to let them sit in the ground and freeze or whatever. We don't even have frost here in California, so that wouldn't work, and I'm in nowhere grow. So only emulating nature so much to a extent. But to that extent, I think there is a sort of following the way that it's been done for thousands of years. It works for a reason. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's kind of why I go about doing it. And using a clone is you're sort of setting yourself up to have some challenges, but there's benefits. You have more consistency because I don't know what that F1 or F2 or F3 is going to provide. I popped something, I hunted something, where like Tao has held a cheesequake male for a long time. He knows what he's going to get with that. So Tao, I'm curious your thoughts on this question.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had all clones that I used, so I like letting the female. I like having them both alive, the male and the females at the same time in separate areas, and I would start the male flowering a little earlier. Then I would start the females. Then I would let the females get to the point separated. The male wouldn't be in there because if they get pollinated early, they won't make as many white hairs. They'll start using that energy to create seeds. So to get the maximum amount of seeds, if that's your goal, to get the most seeds that you can out of the run, wait until like the females are in that third week around there. If you know the plant, you'll know like when it has the white hairs already. And if you do it a little earlier, they'll get more mature quicker. So, but then you bring in the male. That's what I like to do. I like to bring in the male alive, and it's already has mega flowers, and some are already open. Then I bring it in with the girls. I let it hang out in there for like 2 days, and on the second day, it's even opening more flowers. I shake the crap out of it, and then I usually do that 2 days. So the male's only in there like 4 days, and then they take the male out, kill it, and try and start cleaning the whole room already. Like I spray it down with water. The next maybe 2 days, 3 days later, I'll spray the hell out of the plants to try and wipe down any pollen and deactivate it by getting it wet. And that's the way I like to do it. And also this way, if you want to do an open pollination, then probably from seed is the easiest and best. But when you do it from seed, there's usually going to be one male that's going to be ahead of everybody. It's going to probably steal all the white hairs. It's going to get them all first. So that's one thing that I would think of too. If you want,
that's important to consider with open pollination.
Yeah.
It's probably not actually an open pollination. You're just getting the first and second male, maybe.
Right.
The first male might literally
depending on the strains
everything.
And all that. And if you let them go forever, there might be some late females too. So, and maybe that, but yeah. So there's a lot of
it's a fascinating plant
involved. Yeah.
There's so many factors. Like, because if you take a long flowering female with like an early flowering male, the female might not even have pistils ready by the time the male's dead and gone. Like a fast flowering Afghani.
Yeah, I did a crop outside, and the male, it was like 1 week into flower, and it made pollen. And I read somewhere that certain cannabis strains of plants, males will have like an emergency thing where they shoot out pollen as quickly as they can once they make male flowers, just like a short, quick shot. And then
I've seen it in veg.
Go on to produce more male flower.
I see if they're even like a little bit root bound, like Candy Rain or something, a cookies drop when they made regular seeds. All the males were like herming or throwing pollen in the flower room or in the veg rooms of people. So like they didn't even have sexual organs, so they thought, or whatever parts on the plant, and it just started dumping pollen, and there was just like a few pollen sacs that developed because it was in too small of a cup for just a little too long. And I think when they get stressed out, they think, oh shit, I'm gonna die, so I need to throw my pollen to keep my genetics alive. So it's a survival instinct. And you could say like you got to make sure you up pot it in time or whatever, but that's definitely, you don't want to have an ultra finicky male. So yeah, it's interesting. And we did get another question.
Hold on, and one other thing.
Speaking.
Oh shit! Now I just lost it again. What the hell was I going to say? Oh yeah, the pre-flowers. Sometimes, like, it's right. I remember one time I had a whole bunch of females in pre-flower, and I had some male making pollen, and it made like a few seeds, but it didn't get into the buds, and yeah,
you can literally keep a plant in veg, and if it throws pre-flower, you can pollinate those, and you'll get like one or two on each little section where they throw that pistil out. You can get like maybe a dozen or so seeds off of a big vegging male.
That's how I always think a lot of times.
Not vegging male, vegging female.
People find like those 3 seeds in a quarter pound. I think
you never know.
That, I bet. Yeah.
I would wonder if that might be it. Because they say that's usually where it comes from too. It's like on the center of the plant. It's usually like a really, really developed, almost like a black seed. But sometimes there is a thing, we looked into it. Fucking had a blank on the name of it, but apomixis, apomixis, is when a plant self seeds without any pollination. So it is basically like a S1, which is kind of crazy. And it doesn't even require pollination. It can just generate a seed. So
Yeah,
they
it's
found that out in hemp.
photosynthesis too. There's another term for it. Same thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So that was one that I always found interesting. We got another great question before we wrap it up. Smoke Your Own says, do heavy indicas always have large nodal spacing? Cheap home grow. I feel like I generally hear the opposite about heavy indicas, that they have tight nodal spacing. And I noticed like with that 4,000 Kelvin, even versus my 3,500 Kelvin in my flower room, the nodal spacing of the same velvet punches from clones, they stretched more under the 3,500 than they did under the 4,000. So if you want to get away with growing plants in a shorter growth space, I would tend to lean towards that 4,000, maybe 5,000 Kelvin, just because it's not going to get like so blue that you're getting like veggie larfy stuff. And some people actually love like the blue flower. Back in the day, we used to checkerboard and like do metal halide and HPS, but eventually we realized that HPS yielded way more. And Tao's got a pretty cool looking plant right here. I'd say that's pretty tight nodal spacing, wouldn't you, Tao? From Kandahar, Afghanistan, 1971. Crazy time. This was, I think, uh, right before or around when Russia went in. You were
Yeah,
muted,
I
Tao. I
didn't
don't know.
realize I was muted. But yeah, so it says Harvard ethnobotanist Richard Evan Schultz with an indica type variant in Kandahar, Afghanistan, 1971. And yeah, that looks pretty tight to me. The guy's on his knees almost, and that's as tall as the plant is.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you. Indicas should have short nodal space in most of them, and most what they call sativa has longer spacing, in my opinion.
And it's interesting.
But
There's like
then again,
some
we've often discussed how there is no such thing really as uh, indica and
true indica,
sativa
true sativa. Yeah,
and all
sativa just
that,
means cultivated.
right?
Sativa or
So,
sativam
and
means
indica really
cultivated in
meant
Latin.
from India, and there
Yeah.
is some southern Indian strains
That's
that
all
have
back
those
to
thin
Lamarck.
leaves too.
Like cannabis sativa L stands for Lamarck, and Lamarck was like the guy
Mhm.
who categorized thousands or hundreds of plants and animals. And so when he found cannabis in India, it became cannabis indica, which was, I think, it had other origins. It's just where they came across it and where they named it because that's where they saw it, right? It's like people in Ohio growing, West Coast sour diesel or something, and they, it's different, I guess, but at the same time, it could be the same genetic. And I will say it's cool to see like pages like Baba and others on Instagram or other places where you can see like these old landrace genetics still being grown. And there's so many different regions in Afghanistan and different cultures, and it's a really interesting country. I'm sad that there's a lot of conflict there at times, but there's the same in many other countries. So I won't, you know, make it seem like they're the only ones with any issues. Everybody's got their issues, but they have such a rich cannabis history. I wish it was more open to people like myself to visit it. I wouldn't personally stick my neck out there in that regard. I've people say that maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I'm not going to be the one to fucking risk it. There's a lot of stuff here that I haven't seen that I still want to. I haven't even been to Yellowstone yet, so got lots more to see and lots more to do, lots more to grow here. And you can get those seeds sent across the border from some really cool people over there. And many people here already have stockpiles of them to make sure they get them shipped to you quick if you want them. So you can find them; they're out there. And the rich history continues. I've grown some old school Afghanis and really, really liked it. One of my ones that got away, my Great White Buffalo, was a Highland Afghani cross. So shout out to Humboldt Seeds for that one. It was a California sour diesel to it was Calio sour diesel to a 1970s Highland Afghani, and it was still to this day like some of the creme de la creme, best shit that I've ever grown. And I think I have 5 seeds of it. I'm gonna probably do a little seed increase on that, make those F2s into F3s or F1s into F2s or something. But with that said, we've got about 1 minute left, and I'm going to pass it over to Noah the Grower for his final thoughts and shout out before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was always a great time hanging out with you guys. I learned a lot. I always do, and was able to pass a little bit of what I got going on to people, and so that was fun. I'm Noah the Grow on Instagram. You can find me there, and I'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, as always, Noah, and it was a pleasure seeing your garden. I do appreciate that. We are growing with my fellow growers, and you and others are proof. And Tao showed off his garden as well, at least a little bit of the outdoor one. So it's cool to see the plants live. And with that being said, last and certainly not least of my panelists this evening is the American one.
Jack, as always, thanks for hosting. You always do an awesome job. Always good to see Noah the grower, and I'm glad that Spartan showed up. And shout out to all the ones in their absence. And shout out to everyone in chat, man. It's always good seeing everybody there. And yeah, the one other thing I was going to say is that there definitely is Indian strains too that are different that have thin leaf and might be lanky too. I'm not sure, but I know that I've seen thin leaf. I think southern India. I don't know, but anyway,
Kerala. It looks like
yeah.
Kerala, but Kerala has a strain that's like Kyle Breeder grew it, and it had like a 16-foot stalk. He like
Okay,
had
there
to
you
like grow it
go.
around his grow room. So there are actual like
So yeah,
indica,
that's
but they're like thin-leafed, tall sativa, what we
yeah,
would consider kind of
and
structures.
that's why the whole indica sativa nomenclature is bogus. But I
Yeah.
digress. And I don't think it's ever going to change because no one's going to go. The whole world has to be universally accept something. And I think the stoners are going to just stick with. We know what we're talking about. And if we're talking about plant structure, we're talking about fat leaves, and a stout plant is indica, and a tall, lanky plant with thin leaves we'll call sativa. If the shit gets us where we want to hang out on the couch and freaking watch TV, we call it indica. If we want to get up and vacuum the house and clean the doorknobs, we'll call it a sativa. So other than that, that's all I got my 2 cents on that, all that bullshit. But peace out, everyone. I live my life 1/4 mile at a time.
Brought to you by Vin Diesel. I mean, the American one. Great having you. Always a pleasure. And if you were looking for any of my information, at Jack Greenstock is my Instagram. I don't really post there anymore because I delete cannabis accounts and stuff still. So I have a backup account, Jack_Greenstock, which is coincidentally my name on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I post this show every day. Following the live recording of this podcast, I upload it onto X as well as all the podcast platforms for anybody out there who doesn't want to listen live. But to all those who are live, I currently see you chatting. Thank you for all the questions. I really love the Q&As, and I do plan to open it up to open panel. I love having you guys on and showing off your gardens as well. I just thought we had such a good volume of high quality questions that I just wanted to keep it going and keep getting that good information out there. I do think of ourselves as a kind of a information podcast. We are sometimes, science analysis or, own grow experience and a mix of different things and the Q&As of real life growers out there. So we try to keep it fresh and interesting. And I always really enjoy my time here. Like I said at the top, I'm grateful not just for the panelists who come and join me every week, but the live listeners here on the YouTube and all the listeners after on the podcast platform on X. The community that this show has built has been honestly something I never would have imagined. So I'm continually grateful, and I'll never stop saying it. But peace out, y'all, and keep growing, grow love.
Keep growing.